You're talking about the NBA broadcast. Like the thing is that everyone who thinks the way that you do and Dreamer and all of them think is that, oh, there's a reason why they did this, that's nefarious, when all it is just, hey, it's just budget cuts. That's what it is, just budget cuts. And everyone in that network is expendable. It's including, I would argue, including Stephen A. Stephen A is 100% expendable.
I think you're wrong with that one. You're not going to get anyone that's popular as a Stephen A. Smith.
Maybe, but
you're not going to get that. Like Stephen A. Smith is the face of ESPN when it comes to sports talk.
Okay, and what is he?
A guy who likes to scream a lot.
Okay. No, what is, at the end of the day, what is he?
He's a journalist.
No, what is he? What gender is he?
Oh, yeah, he's a man.
You see what I'm talking about? You see what I'm talking about? Like, these dudes get so scared at the sight of women succeeding that they kind of forget you just said it. The person who's the face of ESPN is Stephen A. Smith, who's a man. Who's a man? We're so worried about one random broadcast when it came to a bunch of women who were part of it. But that's what we're worried about. Instead of a guy who's on multiple networks, who's talking about boxing when he don't know what the fuck he's talking about, when they have him on MMA when he don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Like honestly, how am I supposed to react to that? How am I supposed to react to that?
At the end of it's you're making it seem like just because he's the face of ESPN, you're making it seem like, oh, it's impossible for you to try to empower women. You could still try to do that simultaneously. Like,
and there's a problem. And my question is, why is that a problem?
It would be, to me, it's a problem because I have always said, and I don't want to constantly say the same thing over and over again, but obviously I have to. I have always said that if you deserve a job, you deserve the job. But don't put race or your sex into the equation. Do it because you earned the job without you involving sex or race. That's it. That's all I've said. And if you involve either of the two, I think that is wrong. It should be based on your merit, your credentials, and your experience. That's it. Now we could talk about all the complicated issues like nepotism and other stuff, but at the end of the day, shouldn't that be the first conversation? At the end of the day, merit should be the reason why you have the job.
Shouldn't nepotism be the first thing mentioned?
I don't think you should get the job based on nepotism either. But we know what happened.
We know what happened. But which one are you more offended by? Nepotism or someone getting hired because they're a woman?
Which one I should be more offended by?
Mm-hmm.
I think both are equally unfair.
Which one do you think happens more often?
Oh, nepotism happens more often.
All right, then why?
I agree with you there.
Okay, but you see what I'm talking about here. Jeremy Shaft got the job at ESPN because his father, Dick Shaft, was working there for a long time. No one said anything about it. And truth be told, he's very good at his job. But he got the job because of nepotism. So when you have women who get an opportunity to talk about sports or whatever, as long as they know what they're doing, why is that an issue for some people?
No, as long as they know what they're doing, I'm fine with that. That's why I love Doris Brooke, and that's why I love still cannot get her name right. I can't get her name. You know who I'm talking about, the chick from Fox.
Jenny Taft?
No. The chick that you and I like a lot. Man.
Joy Taylor.
For goodness sakes, man. I love Joy Taylor. And last time I checked, she's a woman. But she knows what she's talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like she knows what she's talking about. Malika Andrews does not. Molly, she does not.
Okay, but we're not talking about Malika Andrews or Molly Carum.
But I'm
We're
just I'm
talking
just
about the central feature, the central person in our argument, in the argument that we've been having the last 2 weeks, is Doris Burke.
and did you hear me say anything that, oh, I don't think I think she got the job because she's a woman? Did you hear me say that?
No,
No,
but you're
no.
entertaining dummies who do think that. That's the
Uh,
problem. That's part of
I
the
mean,
problem. You're entertaining dummies who think that she's not qualified.
I even said that I don't agree with him or them. I don't agree with them. I made it
But
very
why?
clear.
But why are we entertaining their opinion?
All I'm saying is that we have multiple. We're not just talking about just one or two people. There's
Steve,
countless.
I know, Steve. I know there's so many people. You have a lot of people who hate when women succeed. Why am I entertaining these fucking morons?
That's a stretch. I don't think they don't like to see women, succeeding. I don't think
We're going in circles. We're going in circles. We're going in circles. Let me get to the part, because we're just going in circles, bro. Let me see. Is this the right? Okay, there we go. All right, we're at okay.
I can't
Let
see
me
it.
share. No.
Go ahead.
I'm sharing a second.
Both of these people are great at broadcasting. Doris obviously is awesome. Everyone knows. We don't need to reiterate. She's literally a Hall of Famer at this. And Doc Rivers, for a lot of the younger listeners, they won't remember. Doc, when he stopped playing, he was doing color analysis.
Very good.
For Spurs local and for Turner National.
Mm-hmm.
And he did such a good job. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he might have been the first, hey, I like listening to you talk about the game. Why don't you be my head coach? Like that thing that Mark Jackson has done and Steve Kerr has done. Now we've seen it happens a lot more often. I think Doc Rivers was the first one of his ilk to go from playing to the broadcast booth and from the broadcast booth to head coach immediately. And that's when he went to the Orlando Magic, and he did a great job in the first year with a very ragtag roster. Ended up being 500 when everyone thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and he won Coach of the Year. And that's kind of the legend of Doc Rivers started there. So even after he left Orlando, before he went to Boston, he did the ABC Finals, the NBA Finals on ABC with Al Michaels. So you're talking about a guy who's really good at broadcasting. And I think that's kind of helped him as well as a head coach, because he knows how to deal with media, because he has that background.
I believe that Doc Rivers' greatest strength post-career is talking.
For sure.
But I'm not kidding you when I say that as a coach, leader of men, one of the great coaching failures when it comes to important basketball games, his resume has more important losses on it than almost any coach. A coach usually doesn't get many chances to do the failure that he has done. And I believe that Doc Rivers has made much of his post-playing career retirement money in just being charming as a talker.
He's very good at talking. You're right. But I mean, to the original point and original question by Dan, I like Mike Breen. I like Jeff Van Gundy. I like Mark Jackson. They were a great trio, great at calling games. But the replacements are really, really good. It's going to take them a minute to form the chemistry that those three had. But I don't care if no one's calling the game. If it's a game I want to watch, I'm going to watch the NBA game. Like, people get outraged about this stuff. And I guess.
Yeah. I call complete BS on that. That's where I call BS. If what he's saying is absolutely true, what's his name that decided to retire, he still would have been commentating if that was the truth. He still would be commentating. When you are a commentator, obviously your job is to call the game, play by play. There's going to be some type of criticism, along the way and what have you. Don't sit here and tell me that, we came here to to watch the game, which is true, but that's the main course. You know what I'm trying to say? Watching the basketball game, watching a football game, watching a hockey game, That's like the meat and potatoes when it comes to basketball and football. That's the hamburger, the fries, the mashed potatoes, the commentating and the side reporting. That's all the other stuff, the ketchup, the mustard, and what have you, the cheese, the stuff that you add on to to the main course. You could still exclude it if you want to, but that stuff is, to a lot of people, is necessary. You know what I'm saying? So for him to say that, well, you don't necessarily need commentators, I think that's BS, because then he wouldn't need to retire if that was the case, and they wouldn't have demoted him if that was the case. They wouldn't have demoted him. So don't sit here and tell me that that stuff is that's not important. I find that BS. And there's another thing that he had said. Keep playing.
Mhm.
I understand why, but if you want to watch a basketball game, you're not tuning in because Mike Breen is calling it.
Right. And we've
Nobody
had this
said that.
conversation before. We talk about Tom Brady.
Nobody said that. Yeah, nobody said that. Nobody said we came to watch the game so we could listen to Jeff Van Gundy or Breen. Nobody ever said that. What people are saying is that we don't like the fact of Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson being replaced by Doc Rivers and Doris. That's it. That's it. Why both can't be true? Obviously, we came here to watch the basketball game or the football game or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, well, we can't complain about commentators being replaced. We can, like in all seriousness, why do people have a hard time accepting the fact that criticism is okay? Why in the world that people are getting upset for the fact that we can share our opinion about a company's decision making? I don't understand that. Look, and there's one more thing that I want to address. Keep playing.
Brady being offered 8 billion, gajillion, trillion, bajillion dollars to call games, and it's like, who cares? I'm going to watch Monday Night Football or whatever anyway. That's all well and good, right? But I think there is something very important that happens. And we know that from kind of the stories that have been come out a little bit, is the league hasn't been too thrilled with Van Gundy in particular, because he can be very critical, particularly
There you go. That's
officiating, but also
okay. This is probably the most biggest. Now, I'm not blaming him. Now, I do believe what he's saying is right. That a lot of people probably don't like the fact that Jeff Van Gundy has been, real critical of the NBA. We hear Charles Barkley do the same thing, Shaquille O'Neal doing the exact same thing, Mark Jackson doing the exact same thing. We've seen that all across the board. At the
Can I
end
say
of
something real quick?
Go ahead.
Just real quick. You have the same. Your head shape is shaped the same as Amina Hassan.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
You guys have the same shaped head. You guys do. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Do your thing.
This is once again of culture being way too sensitive. Way too sensitive. Let's go back in recent history. There have been people, including you, including me, that the NBA, all they do now is shoot jack threes. That's it. That's all we pretty much have been seeing now. And of course, not just fans, but people who actually experience, whether they were coaching in the NBA or played in the NBA, also have the exact same complaints as the fans are. All everybody's doing now is shooting threes. Secondly, the other criticism that people have been having, and I'm going to include you in here just in case if you wanted to defend what he's trying to say. There's two people that you are constantly complaining about when it comes to flopping. James Harden and Joel Embiid. You constantly complain about them. I constantly complain about LeBron James and his flopping and whatnot. So we have at the very least 3 elite superstars who's over here flopping all over the place. We've seen Trey Young do the exact same thing. We obviously see, I know, Steph Curry has done it. We've seen Anthony Davis has done it. So what is the big issue here? If all we're constantly seeing is people flopping all over the place, making the game look sloppy, you damn right. I expect the commentators to call them out on it. Of course I want people to expose the NBA that they're not doing nothing about it. It's not fun to watch seeing grown men, right? Grown men constantly acting like a bunch of babies, flopping everywhere. And you mean to tell me that it was wrong that Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson is calling them out on it? It is wrong that they're calling out the NBA that they're not addressing this flopping issue?
I mean, it's more than just flopping.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's more than just flopping. Like, I'm sure there are lots of things that they didn't want Van Gundy criticizing the NBA about. But I don't think that's the reason why he got fired.
But that's still part of the issue, though. That's still them
It may be a small issue because I think, like we mentioned in the chat, like, I mean, Jeff, I guess you could say they were not happy, but I mean, Stan will go heavier on the NBA. And I mentioned before, and I told you before about David Stern literally blocking him from doing broadcasts.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do that with Jeff. And I think the way that Amin is going to explain it here is actually I'll let him explain it. Do you have anything else to say before I continue or no?
We could listen.
Yeah, I'll let him explain.
Also of the game of things like load management, things like that. And
he is somebody who gets criticized for not liking basketball enough because of the way he's talking about it, not just from the commissioner of the league.
When you are the voice, Stugatz, you're right. I'm not going to stop watching the NBA Finals because Jeff Van Gundy's calling it or whatever.
Right.
But
or he's not. Right.
But or when however many million people are watching, this is the most watched event in our sport, and you're getting bombarded with kind of a negativity. I could see from the league standpoint of like, yo, we're trying to do a thing here. We're trying to sell this. We're trying to like let people be excited about it and be optimistic about it. And I do always point this out. And the same goes to the Turner guys, the Turner Studio.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll play this part too.
We're the only sport that continuously shits on the current product and says everything was better 20 years ago. Nobody is saying in football, no one's walking around saying, man, I'm telling you what, Boomer Esiason would be the best quarterback in the league right now. No one says in baseball that, Doc Gooden would be the best pitcher in baseball right now. We all kind of accept that the modern version of this is the best version in the same way that no one looks at Usain Bolt and says, Carl Lewis would have just smoked him. But our sport, for whatever reason, lives constantly in the past. Our players constantly fight ghosts. They're not playing it. LeBron's not playing Steph Curry. He's playing Michael Jordan.
Yeah. So pretty much what he's saying is that the NBA wants to promote the league, obviously. And when you're on the biggest stage, when you have the NBA Finals where you have Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray versus Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, I guess from the league standpoint, they would much rather have them analyze that than them complaining about not necessarily the flopping. Because, like you said, the NBA, they're I think they instituted a flopping rule this year.
Yeah, they did,
and they tried to get rid of it before.
They have,
but they have. They absolutely have. They. I remember one year when they said they were going to increase fines for flopping, and they did, but they didn't stop it. But they did. But when it comes to what he's saying right here, it's not really the flopping that that they have a problem with. It's them criticizing teams for load management. Is them pretty much shitting on today's players when they say, "Oh, this player was better back in the day than that player." Even though if you take them as they are now, let's say if you take a Charles Barkley, right? You take a Charles Barkley as he is now, and you put him up against a Zion Williamson, right? In my opinion, I think Zion's going to smoke him. He's going to smoke him. You know what I mean? The accomplishment, you can't compare accomplishment. Barkley's a better player easily. But when you take if you take Charles Barkley from that time and you teleport him to today's game, he's not going to be as good because he's not as athletic. But what Amin is saying is that when it comes to the coverage of the NBA, they're always saying, "Oh, this game's not as good. This game's not this. This game's not that. This player's not as good as this player. This game's not as good as that player." And no other sport does that.
But you see that more on talk shows, not the commentating.
I,
You see that more on the debate shows. You don't
yeah,
really you
yeah,
don't you,
but you have to remember what's the top when it comes to the NBA. What's the top talk show of the NBA?
first take.
No,
Yeah,
it's the Shaq and Barkley and Kenny.
TNT. Yeah,
Yeah, that is that show. And you see that all the time. You hear that all the time on that show. You hear it all the time in that show. It's Shaq complaining about Embiid, complaining about Gobert, even complaining about Embiid. If Barkley always having a tiff with Durant or LeBron or whatever, you know what I mean? Those are the type of stuff that goes viral. That type of stuff goes viral, and then you add undisputed with everything that Skip had done to LeBron, the stuff he got into with Russell Westbrook, and even Stephen A. The beef he had with Kevin Durant for a little bit, and a lot of the other stuff he's done over the years. Like, Amin does have a point. Now, I prefer honesty to one. I prefer the broadcast to be good, right? That's most and foremost. But I prefer honesty when it comes to my broadcast. I don't want them sugarcoating anything. I don't want them sugarcoating anything. But
which
I can
go ahead.
understand. I can understand the NBA being like, we kind of want you guys to concentrate on the good of the game than the bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they would rather have that than what they were given before.
But everything, and I'm not just talking about sports. Like everything, we talking about movies, we're talking about TV series, talking about video games, comics, music. Everything gets criticized, and everything pretty much get reviews. I mean, even all these establishments, restaurants, everything gets reviewed, everything gets criticized. The NBA is not the exception to that rule. And when you have things like load management, where fans are constantly complaining about, when you have constantly 3-point shooting, where fans are also complaining about, like, if fans are complaining about a particular thing, you would obviously, the commentators are going to mention it also. Like, they're not blind, they're seeing exactly what we see. You're seeing exactly what we see. So if the NBA doesn't like the fact that they're getting all this criticism, whether it's from the commentators or from these debate shows, that's something that the NBA needs to fix, because no one is going to put a blind eye and acting like as if they don't see anything wrong with the NBA. I mean, that's
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, every league has its issues. Every league has its issues, but I guess what the NBA is saying in that through Amin Al Hassan is that they feel like the negative will always outweigh positive when it comes to news. That's just the nature. That's the nature of life. But I think they would prefer to have a broadcast that is more focused on the positive than the negative. And again, we can bemoan the fact that all guys do is shoot threes, but not everyone hates that. Not everybody hates that. We can bemoan all the flopping and shit like that, but not everybody hates that. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like I said before,
you don't think majority of the people hate load management and flopping?
I'm sure they do hate load management. I'm sure they
Okay,
do hate flopping, but they've done something about the flopping. And load management, like I said before, there's nothing. And you brought it up, and I'm glad you brought it up. And Stephen A. Smith, perfect example. He went on his podcast, being all high and mighty, criticizing Kawhi Leonard, saying that he's the worst superstar he's ever seen.
Oh yeah, I remember.
That
I
he
seen
didn't
that.
play, and then come to find out he had a torn meniscus in that knee. He played through it in game 2, and then couldn't play with it the rest of the way. And then what happened? People don't care about an apology, which I don't think he ever did. They don't care about mea culpa. No, all they care about is the viral video of him trashing Kawhi Leonard. And I think that's the type of stuff that the NBA is not interested in having.
Well, the whole thing with Kawhi, he that dude seems to get injured every single year anyway.
That's perfectly fine, but that doesn't excuse what Stephen A. did.
What Stephen A. did obviously, was dumb, but I think it's perfectly fine for people to criticize a particular player and say this guy just cannot stay healthy. The same thing what we've seen with Anthony Davis.
I mean, I don't think that's not criticism. That's just fact.
Yeah. If you're going to complain about a particular star, whether it's AD, Zion, Kawhi, elite stars, if that elite stars, and you're going to make a complaint that wow, these guys, cannot stay healthy, they can't stay healthy. I mean, I think that's perfectly fair.
No, that's fine. Those are facts. What's not fair is saying that this guy's the worst superstar you ever seen. That's not fair.
Yeah, that I agree with that.
Yeah, that's not fair.
I 100% agree with that. Was there something else you about the audio, or that was it?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay, and the last thing I want to say is him saying that look, people complain about the NFL too. People complain that now the quarterbacks is just constantly throwing the football. The running backs are not getting a fair shake anymore. People complain about the NFL is getting too soft and what have you. Like, let's not act as if the NBA is the only one that's getting all this negativity. The NFL has been getting it too. The NFL has been getting it too. Collinsworth is he complains about the NFL a lot, and so does Troy Aikman. So I think he's wrong on that regard. Again, it's not really that big of a deal, but let's not try to act like as if the NBA is the only one that's going through that. I think every sports league goes through it. And one of the complaints I had, with the MLB, and then you told me that they actually fixed it, is like I think you said that they have like a timer or whatnot on the go ahead.
Yeah, they have a pitch clock where with bases empty is 15 seconds between pitches. When there's someone on base, it's 20 seconds per pitch. Their main goal is to make the game run faster, and it has worked to a T.
And what was the complaints that I've had and what a lot of people had, that the game was too slow. That's criticism. Criticism actually can help make the product better. And
I agree with that. It just depends on the criticism. It depends on the criticism.
And I feel the exact same way, with the NBA. I honestly don't think all the leaders, the owners and whatnot would have taken, the whole flopping thing seriously if enough people didn't complain about it. I honestly believe that. And I appreciate all the complaints, and I appreciate the commentators also, getting involved in it and calling them out on it and exposing them that, yo, you need to, excuse me, you need to fix this because it makes the game sloppy. Now the whole 3-point shooting, it's part of the game. I get it. There's really, nothing, that we could do as far as the 3-point shooting, but the flopping you could absolutely address. You could absolutely address the whole flopping stuff. Remember how I think now there's a new rule, with the whole, hack a Shaq rule. They
adjusted that rule a couple times because the Spurs would have used that rule on Shaq.
Yes.
And it didn't make for good TV.
Yeah. and then you constantly see them do that with a lot of players who are not good free throw shooters. So what did they do? I think after the 2 minute mark, I think it's a technical foul shot. I think you take.
You can't. Yeah, you can't foul someone out off the ball.
Correct.
You can't foul someone.
Now, again, once again, I remember there was a moment where fans were booing because they constantly was playing the whole hack a Shaq thing. People complained, people criticized, and now they fixed it. So I think criticism, negativity is necessary, just like how bad reviews, they're all necessary in order for you to make a change and to improve the product. So I think and that is, once again, I'm gonna say this one last time, that is the reason why I always felt that Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy were special, because they were really the only two commentators, at least from what I could remember, would really criticize the NBA wholeheartedly. I don't recall anyone else going as hard as they do, but you said Stan Van Gundy did that, which is fine. But I always appreciated it because there were the same things that I've complained about, and so did you. Once again, you didn't like it when Joel Embiid did all the flopping, and I think the criticism.
The thing with Embiid is not the fact that he flops; it's that he's always falling down, and that's why he gets hurt. That's part of the reason why he always gets hurt, because he's falling on that hard fucking floor.
Yeah.
That's why, dude 7'2" always falling down on got guard blowing on him, he falls down. Like fuck.
Yeah, and you see that's my main point. You have these guys who's over 6 feet, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", with all that muscle, freaking grown men, and you're flopping like a bunch of babies. I don't want to see that in the basketball game. Like put your pants on and and act like real grown masculine men. All right, and that's pretty much all I have to really say about the audio. I just wanted to address that. If you have anything else, that's cool. If not, that's cool.